He always backs down, pathetically easy to control. My wife laughed with her affair partner in my own kitchen, urging him to seize everything I created. But I was a quiet CEO they ridiculed, and I shattered both their careers in a single night. That night, it wasn't a scream or a crash that hit me. It was that laugh, the wrong laugh. And then, my key, refusing to turn. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I forced myself to be slow, deliberate. I pushed the door open, expecting maybe a plumber or a neighbor. Instead, I found Mason. He was in my kitchen, barefoot, holding a knife. Not in a threatening way. No, casually, like he owned the place. He was slicing lemons for cocktails, as if it was his usual Friday night. "Hey, man," he said, not a hint of urgency or apology. "I didn't think you'd be back so soon." He didn't even ask who I was. That told me everything I needed to know. My wife stood behind him, in her leggings and one of my old t-shirts. She didn't look surprised, not even a flinch, just leaned against the counter like it was a casual dinner party, and I was the intruder. He reached into my fridge, pulled out the six-pack of beer I kept hidden in the back, popped one open, and took a long swig. "She told me it'd probably take you weeks to come to terms with it," he smirked. "Guess she gave you too much credit. But hey, she's upgrading." I didn't say a word. I just looked at her, and she met my gaze. No shame, no guilt, just boredom, like she was already tuning out of some long, tedious meeting. That's when he made his biggest mistake. "You should go pack, man," he said, waving the beer bottle dismissively. "Stay in the guest room tonight, if you need to. I mean, we'll obviously sort things out legally." As if it was already his house, his fridge, his bay, his woman. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because I'd forgotten how bold stupidity can be when it thinks it has the upper hand. Instead, I just nodded. "It's fine," I said. Calm. Too calm, probably. Then, I turned, went upstairs, closed the bedroom door behind me. But I didn't pack. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. I didn't even pace. I sat at my desk, pulled open the bottom drawer, and took out a small black notebook. I hadn't touched it in years. Not because I didn't need it, but because I truly hoped I'd never have to again. There's something you should know about me. I'm not on social media. I don't do company Zoom calls. I built my firm from the ground up, and I stayed in the shadows on purpose. When our valuation surpassed $300 million, I didn't do the press rounds. I never let them take my picture. That anonymity, it was intentional, strategic, and at that exact moment, it was incredibly, terrifyingly useful. Because this fool, Mason, he worked for me. He just didn't know it. As I flipped through the pages, I could hear them downstairs. Her laughter, louder now. His voice, droning on about his big presentation last week, how his boss finally saw his potential, how the old guard just needed to get out of the way. I wrote down his full name. I already knew it. LinkedIn had his face, my HR reports had his employee number, but I wanted to write it down. Make it physical, real, tactile. Mason J. Crowley, mid-level strategist. Loud, overconfident, mediocre. Hired 6 months ago on a recommendation. I'd flag him during a random scan of internal memos when I noticed his personal branding posts on company time. He wasn't smart, but he was ambitious in that fragile, performative way that results in excellent LinkedIn rants and disastrous ethical reviews. He thought I was just her boring husband, a washed-up, middle-aged tax accountant, easily outmatched by a younger, cockier guy with good hair and no depth. And that was perfectly fine. I needed him to be that way. It made what came next cleaner. I opened my laptop, typed in a password I hadn't used in over a year, watched the encrypted dashboard open. It wasn't flashy, no spy movie interface, just rows and columns of names, emails, behavioral indicators. I scrolled until I found him, Mason Crowley, flagged for excessive use of personal devices during secure client windows. 2 internal HR notes for conduct during off-site meetings. A confidential note from a junior associate about boundary issues, withdrawn before it escalated. And here he was, in my kitchen, drinking my beer, with my wife, by the way, was still technically on my health insurance. She used to joke that I was so boring I was basically background noise. I used to laugh with her. I thought it was self-deprecating humor. Now I realized it wasn't a joke at all. It was the lens through which she chose to see me. Mason, with his "I'm a disruptor" arrogance and his podcast quotes, made her feel like she was finally starring in her own little edgy drama. She didn't realize the script was written years ago, and I never stopped editing it. Downstairs, the music got louder. Something with bass and zero taste. He was making himself comfortable. That was fine, because I was about to make it unforgettable. He opened the curtains like he paid the mortgage. Put his boots on my coffee table, still caked with mud. He put on music that made the art on the walls vibrate. The same art she once told me gave the house class. Now she was nodding her head to the rhythm of some synth-drenched garbage while he made himself a double whiskey in my glass. "This is a great space," he said. "Open concept. Ever thought about knocking down that corner wall?" She shrugged. It was always his thing. He liked it closed off. Mason smiled. "Well, you've upgraded. Open it up. Add some light." She laughed at that. Not a belly laugh. Just that smug, performative chuckle women use when they're not laughing at the joke. They are laughing for the man telling it, to keep the illusion afloat. I was upstairs, in the hallway, my back against the wall, watching them through the thin slit between the blinds. The angle gave me just enough of the kitchen. I didn't want to see everything. I didn't need to. I had already seen enough. Mason poured himself another drink and leaned back like he was auditioning for a cologne ad. "Anyway," he said, stretching his arms. "Once this with Curtis closes, I'm aiming for a VP position. Do you know what that means?" She raised an eyebrow. He smiled. "Lexus, maybe an M series. Depends on how generous they are. If they don't cooperate, I'll start taking calls. And then, the icing on the cake. And the CEO," he added, with a dismissive wave, "is probably too old to even know what half of us do. I swear our guy is a ghost. He just signs checks." She laughed again. My stomach didn't churn because of the betrayal. It churned because of the sheer weight of how stupid they both were. Because the ghost they were mocking had an exact replica of Mason's onboarding file on a flash drive in the bedroom safe. Because the CEO, who didn't know what they did, built the job descriptions himself. Every role, every department, every quarterly review cycle. And no one knew my face, not even at the board level. When we went public, I stepped out of the spotlight. I let the COO handle the press. Let marketing inventor found a figurehead who looked good in a suit. That was the point. I could walk through conferences unnoticed. I could ride in elevators with interns and hear what they really thought. I could sit in meetings, say nothing, and learn everything. Now, Mason was bragging about leaking parts of the Curtis report, the same deal I had negotiated 2 months ago using a shell company. He thought that inside information he gave his friend at that Trash of Finance blog was his ticket to relevance. He didn't know we had already flagged his IP. We just hadn't acted on it yet. Still, the arrogance didn't bother me. No, really, it was the assumption. The automatic, unthinking assumption that I was disposable, replaceable, weak, that because I was quiet, I had no claws. Because I didn't act powerful, I had none. He turned to her and said, "So, when do you think he'll actually leave?" She exhaled. "I don't know. He'll get the picture. He always folds." He folds. I stood still, perfectly still, because I wanted to remember that word. Then Mason leaned in and kissed her, like the kitchen, the house, her mouth, her time, her choices. It was all his. My hand gripped the window frame, not out of jealousy, not out of rage, out of the sheer absurdity of it all. I had spent 15 years protecting her from storms she didn't even know existed. She thought being married to me was boring. She never noticed the wires I ran under the floorboards, the protective clauses I inserted into every shared asset, the passive structures I built in her name because I wanted her to feel independent without risking real exposure. And now here she was, laughing with a man who used the company Wi-Fi to leak confidential presentations from his work laptop. He started opening drawers. He asked, "Do you have one of those milk frothers?" She said, "Yeah, somewhere." He said, "You'll have to show me where things are later. I'm gonna start bringing my protein shakes." He clapped. "Oh, remind me to measure the garage. I gotta make sure the new car will fit once the bonus closes." She winked at him. "This weekend, maybe. Deal." That was the moment I knew. This was no longer about dignity. It was about documentation. I went back to the bedroom, opened the safe, and took out the second drive. The one labeled Maven Flap. I plugged it in, watched the screen light up. 10 folders, each with a name, each with a profile, each of someone who once thought they were irreplaceable and now were just archive mistakes. I dragged Mason's name into a new folder, labeled it Live Case Priority, and let the system start syncing. He wanted to play CEO, then he could experience how fast a real CEO buries people like him. When I went downstairs, the music was louder than before, as if the volume somehow asserted control. He was lying on the sofa now, one arm draped over the back, the other lazily holding a glass filled to the brim with my 12-year-old Glendronat. That bottle was a gift from my old mentor, now retired, living quietly on a boat in Maine. And I had been saving it for our anniversary, the one she apparently forgot. Mason looked up and smiled like a kid caught raiding the liquor cabinet. "Don't worry," he said. "I left you enough for a toast with the lawyer." The folder in my hand wasn't thick. It didn't need to be. He assumed it was papers. Divorce filings, maybe. Property appraisals. Or notes saying, "We tried." That's what people like him expect. Dramatic papers. Maybe even a scene. But drama requires a reaction. I was done giving him that. "That's for the divorce lawyer," he chuckled, tilting his glass at me. "Tell him he's already busy." She laughed again. The same brittle laugh she'd been using all night. The kind of laugh you use when your only real line of defense is pretending you don't care. I didn't answer. I didn't even look at them. I walked into the kitchen, slid the folders smoothly onto the marble countertop right between them, and walked out. No words. No flourish. Just a presence they couldn't understand. He called after me. You're not even going to fight. I stopped on the first step, my hand on the banister, and turned just enough for my voice to carry. I don't need to. Silence. The kind of silence that makes people uncomfortable because they don't know what it means. Mason shifted in his seat. My wife tilted her head, a trace of confusion in her smile, because for the first time, she wasn't sure if I was bluffing. Back upstairs, I could hear them again. Not giggles. More like whispers this time. Curious. Cautious. He asked her what the folder was. She said, probably a petty list of things he wants to keep. He opened it. I heard the rustle of manila, and then the pause. I imagined his eyes scanning the first few lines of the report. Confidential internal risk assessment. Mason Crowley. Hired date, 6 months ago. Position, strategic operations level 2. Notes, anomalous login behavior flagged on multiple devices. Curtis Project report exposure traced to Crowley's access log. Audio fragments recovered. Unauthorized discussion of deal flow with third-party journalist. High probability of NDA breach. Escalation to compliance lead with executive oversight suggested. The documents included screenshots of Slack messages he'd deleted, metadata from the attachments he'd forwarded to his personal email, thinking no one would track the MAC address. Even a partial transcript of a drunken voicemail he left for a friend, bragging about knowing too much and having data info that could get him level jumped overnight. He had been sloppy. He just didn't know the right people were watching. What he also didn't know, what made the blood drain from his face when he got to the second page, was that the oversight authority for the investigation wasn't a faceless VP or an intern. It was me. Not his signature, just my initial stamped in a digital watermark that only insiders recognized. DLC Alp 1. He had been mocking me in my own house, on my own payroll, after violating multiple federal confidentiality laws, and I had just handed him a folder with his professional obituary inside. My wife asked, "What is it?" He didn't answer. Instead, I heard him get up, walk to the sink, pour the rest of my scotch down the drain, and turn on the faucet, as if that would wash away what he had just seen. I sat at my desk upstairs, phone in hand, a pre-drafted message blinking on the screen. To compliance lead. Subject, Crowley folder drop complete. Body, he has it. Initiate tag. Wait for external PIN. Don't alert PR yet. I didn't send it. Not yet. Because the best part of letting a man think he's in control is watching how fast he drowns when he realizes the boat has been leaking for weeks. And you were the one who handed him the bucket with the hole in it. Downstairs, Mason's voice cracked. He can't do anything, right? I mean, he's just her husband. An instant of silence. Then softly, from her, I don't know. That was the first honest thing she had said all night. He left the folder there like it was a menu. He had no appetite to read. It made him uncomfortable. I could tell by the way his eyes would dart to it every few minutes and then look away. But he wasn't ready to admit it. Not to her, and not to himself. So instead, he resorted to noise. He changed the music to something more aggressive. He called it focus mode. Then he turned on the speakerphone and started calling people from work, as if he were running a startup launch from my living room. I sat at the top of the stairs, just out of sight. Silent. The kind of silence that makes fools talk louder. First call, Bree from sales. Yeah, Mason said, pacing near the kitchen island. I'm at her house now. He's still here, but basically done. Some folder trying to look serious. A pause, then a laugh. No, man, I'm not worried. He looks like he still uses fax machines. Honestly, you should see the guy. It's like a taxidermist meets an accountant. Another laugh, this time from her. Second call, Damien from business development. Dude, listen, Curtis is gonna close. I'm calling it. Once it does, I want that chair across from Vac. I'll handle APAC. I've been grinding, right? Have you seen the decks? Better than anything the old guys scribbled on a napkin. A grunt of agreement. Then the punchline. I mean, whoever the CEO is, he signs from behind a curtain. He's a myth, a nameplate, an old fart with a P.O. box and a bad knee. That's when I looked at my hands. The skin on my palms is rougher than it should be for a guy who spends most of his days behind screens. A scar, right along the lifeline. A cut from a box cutter when I was running wires in the first office space we ever rented. A place that didn't even have heat for the first 2 months. I signed that warehouse lease with a bandaged hand and an empty wallet. And now I was a nameplate. I leaned back, let it sink in. Not the insult, the perspective. This was never about my wife. No, really. She was just an echo chamber for the kind of man Mason always was. Performative, transactional, and hungry for things he believed made him powerful. He didn't love her. He loved what she represented. The validation that he was worth something. She mistook that hunger for passion. I mistook her loyalty for permanence. That was on me. But this was all on them. Downstairs, Mason finally opened the fridge and took out the short ribs I had made from scratch 2 nights before the trip. Braised short ribs, still in a container I had labeled. He microwaved them like he had paid for the damn groceries. Between mouthfuls, he told her, "When this Curtis thing closes, we should look at that place by the marina." She asked, "The one with a rooftop garden?" "Yeah," he said. "Gated too. We won't have to see him if he tries to come back." I went back to the bedroom, closed the door behind me, sat at the desk, took a deep breath, then picked up the phone and typed a message to Russell Franks. Subject, house call. "Buddy, it's time. Use the back entrance. Knock twice. Bring the package." Russell is the head of compliance. He reports directly to me. Not the COO, not the board. Me. And Russell does not visit employees at home unless something has gone very, very wrong. I hit send. I didn't feel angry. I felt still. The kind of stillness you only find right before an avalanche. I looked at the clock. 7:41 p.m. Russell would need 20, maybe 25 minutes, depending on traffic. I left the bedroom, leaned against the banister again, and listened to Mason call someone else. He sounded like a podcast producer he was trying to impress. "Yeah, man, I got sound bites for days. I'll send you some takes tomorrow. Maybe even throw in a few courtesy leaks, you know? Wink wink kind." It wasn't subtle, but it was loud. The worst kind of liability. My wife finally asked, "What's really in that folder?" He waved a fork in the air. "Just some passive-aggressive financial stuff. Property splits or whatever. I'm not going to read it. That's what lawyers are for." She didn't press him. She never did. That was always the difference between us. She needed noise to feel alive. I preferred precision, measured silence. And the silence was coming to collect. Because in exactly 31 minutes, the man at the door would not be a process server. It would be Russell, and he wouldn't be coming with questions. He would be coming with answers. The doorbell cut through the music like a scalpel. One sharp note, then silence. Mason, in the middle of a sentence on another self-congratulatory call, didn't even stop. He just shouted towards the hallway without looking up. "Babe, get it." She sighed, got up, smoothed down her leggings like she was opening the door to a spa, not the house she was actively co-opting. I stood at the top of the stairs, still, arms crossed, watching from above. When she opened the door, the smile wiped off her face so fast it was like watching a mask drop. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She just stepped back. The man who entered didn't knock. He didn't wait for permission. He moved like time owed him an apology. Tailored coat, damp from the drizzle, leather gloves half off, still clutched in one hand. His eyes skinned past her like she wasn't even there. He was pale, breathless, his jaw tight. "Where is he?" he asked. Not a question, a demand. Mason, now getting up from the sofa like a Roman senator, gave the man a lazy look. "You're looking at him." No response. Not a glance. Not an acknowledgement. The man's eyes locked onto mine, standing silently at the top of the stairs. He exhaled like he had just found oxygen. "So," he said, his voice low, tight, urgent. "We have a situation." Mason blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" The man still didn't look at him. That's when Mason took a step forward, puffing out his chest a little. "I think there's been a mistake. Buddy, are you looking for someone else?" Still nothing. The man's gaze remained fixed on me, as if everything else in the room had ceased to exist. My wife finally spoke, her voice thinner than I had ever heard it. "What's going on?" The man didn't answer her either. He pulled a sealed envelope from inside his coat and held it tightly. He didn't extend it. He didn't offer it. He just held it like it was too important to let go of without the right words being said. First, Mason scoffed. "Look, man, whoever you are." Finally, the man cut him off. "You need to sit down and be quiet." His tone wasn't angry. It was clinical, precise, like someone in crisis management who is 5 seconds away from calling security. Mason froze mid-stride. His expression cracked for the first time. Not fear, not yet, but the confusion of a man whose reflection just blinked at him. I walked slowly down the stairs, each step measured, silent. My eyes did not leave the man at the door. His face twitched slightly as I approached, not from discomfort, but from relief, as if he had just confirmed the worst-case scenario, and now had a plan. "I'm guessing," I said quietly, "that what I flagged finally made it to your desk." He nodded once. "Escalated 30 minutes ago. I came myself." "Good." Mason opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Who the hell are you?" I turned to him. There it was, the crack in his voice, the shift. I didn't answer him. I just took the envelope from the man's hand and slowly opened it. Inside, a hard copy of an internal breach alert. Severity level 3. Timestamped. Detailed. Not just about data, but about behavior, about unethical proximity to a named source. The source, Mason. I handed it back to him. Walk me through it. The man straightened up. Whistleblower evidence confirmed. 2 audio leaks from secure presentations. 1 flagged under Curtis. 1 under Selrick. Both traced to a company-issued device. IP matches your terminal. Timestamps during SAS sensitive review sessions. Legal notified. They are waiting for your sign-off. The board has been briefed. PR, not yet. Waiting to see if it hits the press first. Mason took a step back. You're making a mistake. This is just, he's my ex's husband. This is nothing. The man finally turned to face him. Son, he said, his voice flat as concrete. That man signs your paycheck. You could feel the silence after that. Not a metaphor. I could feel the air pull back like the room realized it was too full of lies and needed to breathe again. My wife sat down. Not because she was told to. Because her legs couldn't hold her anymore. Mason, to his credit, he didn't collapse. He tensed up, like maybe he thought he could still talk his way out of this. Maybe with charm. Maybe with volume. I walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, took out the last untouched bottle of water, and took a sip. Then I looked at him. You said the CEO was a ghost, I said. You just didn't think he'd walk into his own house. He didn't answer. He couldn't. I took each step like I was descending into a performance I had written, directed, and now finally decided to star in. Mason stood there, his mouth half open, somewhere between a question and a swallow. The arrogant spread of his shoulders was gone, replaced by something more brittle. His boss, Russell, stood rigidly near the door, looking between us like someone about to defuse a landmine. Wait, said Mason, pointing at me with an awkward laugh. Can someone tell me what the hell is going on? Who even are you? Russell didn't even flinch at him. Instead, he turned his head slowly, surgically, and looked at Mason like he was a petri dish gone wrong. You idiot, he muttered. That was it. Not dramatic, not loud, just an emotionless statement, like a death sentence read from a clipboard. My wife, still slumped on the sofa like the air had been knocked out of her, finally managed a full sentence. Wait, what is this? What are they talking about? She wasn't defending him. No, really. She was just trying to find the nearest lifeboat before the deck started to tilt too far. The folder was still on the kitchen counter, untouched. Mason moved like it was radioactive. He hesitated, then grabbed it with both hands and opened it almost defiantly, as if maybe it was just old tax returns or an emotional monologue on paper. Instead, his eyes locked. He didn't turn the page. He didn't need to. The first sheet was a printed log of his company email metadata, timestamped forwards to an unsecured Gmail account. The file titles matched sensitive projects, Curtis, Selrick, and a particularly volatile early-stage defense tech startup with multi-billion-dollar NDAs attached. The second page listed flag messages from Slack. Keywords, leverage, leak, they'll never trace it. The third, voice-to-text transcript of a drunken voicemail he sent to an ex-coworker at 1:37 a.m., bragging that he had a folder so hot it would send the CEO's wrinkly ass into early retirement. Page 4 was intentionally blank, just a header that read, "This log has been digitally preserved in accordance with internal code Blue Policy, certified evidence for escalation under direct executive authorization." And that is exactly what I had done. Mason's lips moved like he wanted to read it aloud, but no sound came out. He closed the folder, then opened it again, as if maybe the contents would change. Russell walked past him, not acknowledging the folder at all. He just leaned in towards me, his voice barely above a whisper. "PR is drafting statements," he said. "The board wants to know if we pull the trigger tonight or tomorrow morning." I didn't answer yet. Instead, I turned to Mason, who was now holding the folder like it could protect him. "You leaked sensitive materials from a device registered under your company profile. You used public Wi-Fi on a flagged, unsecured network. And you discussed deal information on a call with an unvetted podcast host," I said flatly. "You even emailed a client list to your personal inbox the night after your second interview. You idiot. And predictable." "I didn't," he croaked, but I cut him off. "You did, and you were warned. Page 6 is the audit trail. IP, device ID, and your name on the access log. At 2:13 a.m., right after you left that bar in Westchester. Remember?" His face drained. His lips started to form a denial, but the words got stuck. The timestamps were too precise. The details too tight. This wasn't a setup. It was a reveal. He looked at Russell. "You can't just take his word for it." Russell barked a dry laugh. "His word? Mason, your access to our internal systems was revoked 12 minutes ago. You're already locked out. Your desk is being cleared as we speak. HR was briefed 10 minutes before I got in the car. Do you think we start with the CEO when we move on someone like you?" My wife stood up now, her arms trembling. "This is actually happening." Mason turned to her as if she could help. "Tell them. Come on. Tell them this is a mistake." She backed away. That was all she did. She just moved away. He looked stunned, like betrayal was suddenly something he could taste. I walked past both of them and leaned over the kitchen counter. The real tragedy, I said, unscrewing the cap from the water bottle I had left there earlier, is that you thought this was all about her. Mason's mouth opened, then closed. Then he sat down slowly, as if someone had cut the strings holding up his knees. His silence wasn't acceptance. It was the start of understanding. And he was just getting started. Russell's phone buzzed twice in his pocket. He looked down, turned pale. Legal just called back, he said. They've already been contacted. It's going public. The press might have a lead. Mason's eyes darted to him, then to me, then to the door, like he was calculating how fast he could get out. His skin was sheet white now, his jaw trembling like a man trying to swallow a bolt. You said, press. His voice broke on the second word. Russell didn't look at him. 2 reporters already flagged the Curtis leak. One is asking why our compliance team missed it. They are naming you. Mason staggered back as if he had been punched in the gut. I didn't know. You used company devices. Russell snapped. All the pleasantries were gone now. You logged into Slack from your work laptop. You forwarded encrypted reports to your Gmail. And he gestured at me, stunned. You sent voice notes from your company phone to a third-party contractor about the CEO. I took a step closer. Silent. Calm. The kind of calm that makes people panic more than shouting. You said he was a ghost. I muttered. A nameplate. You sent audio clips of yourself bragging that I would never know because I was too old to matter. Mason opened his mouth, desperate to summon something. Anything to stop this train from crashing. I didn't know you were. He tried. That's the problem, I said, cutting him off. You didn't know. You didn't care. Did you think anonymous men are irrelevant? Did you think I was the kind of man who gets replaced? His voice went small. You were just in the background. I nodded slowly. I said. And that's exactly why I saw everything. Behind me, my wife flinched, not realizing it. She had been frozen for minutes, sinking into the sofa, her fingers knotted in the hem of her shirt. But now she slowly backed away, as if maybe if she moved quietly enough, she could melt through the floor. Wait, she whispered. You're not just. She trailed off. She couldn't finish the sentence. I turned my head, looked her directly in the eye. I'm not just anything, I said. Not anymore. She blinked, her lips half open. I could see her rewinding the last couple of years, trying to calculate what she might have said, what she might have laughed at, what she dismissed when I said, I'm still involved, just not visible. Mason, meanwhile, was coming apart in real time. He held onto the counter for balance. The folders still dangling from one hand like a dead limb. You wouldn't fire me for this, would you? It's not even firing you, Russell cut in. Son, you're done. That ship hasn't just sailed. It's sunk. I have 5 emails from legal and a red flag from HR glowing like a reactor core. I didn't leak everything. Mason pleaded, desperate now. Just a couple of teasers. Everybody does it. Everybody tries to build buzz. You don't build buzz with a sign-off, I said. You build lawsuits. You endangered the Curtis acquisition. You exposed our early intel on Selrick. And you risked a multi-billion-dollar defense contract. But sure, let's call it buzz. He looked at my wife again, desperate now, his eyes pleading. She looked down. Not a word. Not a sound. Just shame blooming quietly on her face like ink in water. This can't be happening, Mason said. You set me up. You planned this. I shook my head. No, I said. You walked right into it. I just made sure the lights were on when you did. Behind him, Russell's phone vibrated again. PR wants a quote, he said. They're going to get ahead of the leak. Control the story. I looked at Mason. Give them. We trusted the wrong man. And we corrected it fast. He slumped onto the bar stool. Finally, out of defiance. Not sitting. Collapsing like a puppet whose strings had finally given up. And in that moment, I saw the man not as a threat, but as exactly what he was, a footnote. And I hadn't even turned the page yet. The silence was broken by a vibration, a faint stuttering hum from the kitchen island. Then another, and another. My wife's phone lit up first. 3 missed calls. Then a flurry of text messages from her sister. What is going on? I'm hearing things I don't understand. Are you okay? Is it true about Mason? She grabbed the phone like it could explain something before she had to ask me. Her eyes raced across the screen, scanning quickly, her jaw tight. Then Mason's phone lit up. A banner across the top, HR department urgent. Another from a number he didn't recognize. Then another, and another. He didn't answer it. He stared at the screen like it had betrayed him. Why are they calling me? He whispered. Why would they call me now? Because now had finally arrived. He hesitated with the phone, his thumb hovering over the screen, as if he could decline the whole of reality if he just didn't tap accept. Then the text that broke through his last wall of denial came through. A single line from the head of internal investigation, sent through an encrypted SMS. You are not authorized to delete any company property. A legal hold has been initiated. Mason's whole body flinched. He looked at me, trembling now. You. His voice broke. You set me up. I walked past him. I didn't even look at him. I opened the fridge. I grabbed one of the waters he hadn't touched. I took a long sip. Cold, clean, familiar. Then I turned around and looked him in the eye. No, I said flatly. You volunteered the flicker. You walked in here thinking you were stealing something. But you gave everything away the moment you opened your mouth. But I didn't leak, he started. You did, I said. Maybe not the full PDFs, but voice notes. Screenshots, teasers. Enough to trigger legal. Enough to make Curtis nervous. And enough to set our PR team on fire. I didn't know, he mumbled. I didn't know who you were. You didn't care who I was. I could feel my wife behind me, still scrolling through her screen, her breathing shallow. Her hands were shaking now. Every few seconds, her screen lit up with a new notification. Her sister again. Then a college friend. Then a text from someone I recognized. Liz, a mutual friend from the yoga group who always swore she wasn't a gossip. It's your Mason on the news. You're trending. It's bad. Is Tom really the founder? What? She stared at those texts like they were in another language. Because until that moment, she had never Googled me. Never asked questions about the boring business I ran from the guest office. She once called me a quiet engine. She said I kept things running while she focused on living. And now the quiet engine was roaring back to life, and she didn't know where to stand. Mason was spiraling. He checked the HR text again. Then his email, already blocked. He opened Slack. Error. Teams, error. Internal dashboard, gone. He looked at me like a man who just realized the fire had started under his feet 20 minutes ago. What happens now? He asked, his voice broken. Now, I said, now you're going to see how much oxygen you really had. Russell stepped in again, looking at his watch. We have a call with legal in 12 minutes. Do you want me to initiate the full severance clawback? I nodded once. Take it all. Mason's head snapped up. Wait. All of it? It's not. You violated compliance, Russell said, multiple times. The second we forward your phone records, legal will trigger the clause. You're lucky we're not pursuing you criminally. My wife finally found her voice. What clause? Russell looked at her, then at me. I shrugged. Let him answer. Clause 14.3b, he said. Standard corporate protection, breach of trust, internal sabotage, and reputational risk equals forfeiture of options. Bonus, an immediate removal from stock consideration. It's all on the paperwork. Mason's mouth hung open. His hands were shaking. But I had vested shares. Not anymore. He turned to her as if she could stop the bleeding. Tell them I didn't mean it like that. Tell them this is insane. She backed away again, then did something Mason had never seen before. She looked at me, not to plead, but because she finally understood who held the air in the room. And Mason was choking on it. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need a grand exit. Just a quiet step back from the wreckage. They stood frozen in place as I walked past them. He, still gripping the edge of the kitchen island as if it could stop the floor from sinking. She, holding her phone as if it could explain the moment better than her own memory. I walked past them as if they were not there, as if they were furniture. I decided not to take in the divorce. Russell followed, his stride uneven, half formal, half panicked. The professional mask he had worn when he first walked in had cracked somewhere between the folder and the phone calls. Now he looked like a man who had just realized he had been serving coffee to a king dressed as a janitor for the last 5 years. He caught up with me at the front door, lowering his voice. So, I had no idea. I didn't stop walking. I just opened the door and stepped out into the cool night. You weren't supposed to know, I said. He followed me outside, his voice dropping even lower. If I had known, I never would have. You did what everyone does. I cut him off. You saw confidence and volume and assumed it meant competence. You saw me not speak and thought it meant I wasn't watching. That's not your fault. That's the design. He swallowed. No retort. No defense. The porch light cast a dim orange hue on his face. It made the sweat on his forehead shine like guilt. He looked at his phone. What now? Start drafting the termination, I said. Use internal breach language. Keep it concise. And prep a soft release for PR. Stall the press 24 hours if you can. And have legal double confirm clause 14.3b before we do. Understood. He hesitated, as if he wanted to say something else. But I wasn't interested in moral reflection. This wasn't a teaching moment. It was cleanup. I stepped off the porch, walked towards the car I had parked down the street, intentionally out of sight, like everything else I had been for years. Behind me, through the open door, I heard her voice. My wife, or whatever she was now, desperate, breathless, loud enough to echo across the yard. Tom, wait. Tom, please. I didn't stop. I didn't turn. I didn't flinch. She called out again, my name now tinged with something closer to need than anger. I kept walking. The gravel crunched under my shoes in a rhythm so calm it probably made her panic more, because I wasn't storming off. I wasn't slamming doors or breaking furniture. I wasn't giving her a final speech. I was just done, and she had no idea how to fight that. That's the thing with people who thrive on drama. Silence terrifies them, especially when it comes from the one person they thought they destroyed. I reached the car, got in, closed the door behind me. From the windshield, I could still see the house. The warm kitchen lights cast two long, misshapen silhouettes inside. Mason was sitting now, slumped over like a man who had been hit by a truck his own arrogance built. She was pacing with the phone, probably calling everyone she thought could fix it. Her sister, maybe her gym friend, possibly even my lawyer. It didn't matter. What mattered was that neither of them had expected the exit. Certainly not this exit. They expected a broken man. They got a buried king rising from the earth with a ledger full of receipts, and no more reason to keep them secret. I looked at the dashboard clock. 8:49 p.m. Not even 2 hours since I walked through that door. 2 hours. 15 years of marriage. 6 months of betrayal. 42 minutes of cold strategy. And now, the rest of their lives to sit in it. The sunrise the next morning didn't feel symbolic. It just felt quiet. I watched it from the 43rd floor. Glass walls that stretched out to the east. The city still half asleep, not knowing it was about to chew up and swallow a story built on arrogance, ambition, and carelessness. I didn't go home. I didn't need to. What they called home had already been wiped from the deed, digitally reassigned through a silent transfer clause she signed years ago without reading. The night before, as Mason clung to the kitchen counter and she screamed behind me, a pre-signed packet was delivered to my legal team. Finalized. Recorded. The house was mine. Their names were already dust. At 6:17 a.m., the news alerts started hitting phones all over the financial world. Audio leak prompts executive firing at major firm. Curtis deal in jeopardy after inside info surfaces. Anonymous CEO returns amidst internal breach. His face was there, red-eyed from a corporate headshot. Her name was there too, just a line below, marked as a personal associate of the accused. The photo they used was from a gala she dragged me to 4 years ago, where she had laughed about how invisible I was. Now that invisibility was gone. At 9:03 a.m., I walked into the office lobby. The front desk didn't recognize me. No, really. They gave me that polite, neutral look reserved for high-level vendors or aging consultants. Until the VP of Strategy, Nora, saw me from across the hall and froze mid-stride. Mr. Albert, she whispered. I gave a one-word nod. Good morning. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Then she stepped aside. The elevator doors closed silently behind me, and in that little mirrored box, I saw what Mason never did. A man who had never really left. He had just stepped out of view long enough for the weeds to grow. The 42nd floor was filled with whispers when the doors opened. I stared. Email stopped mid-type. A young associate dropped a reusable coffee mug trying to stand up. I didn't slow down. I didn't acknowledge the noise. Because ghosts don't need applause. They just need the doors to open. The boardroom was paneled with glass overlooking the skyline. 13 seats. 7 occupied. 2 Curtis executives were patched in remotely. Small windows glowed on the video wall. They were still in damage control mode, still figuring out how deep the breach went. But when I walked in, everything stopped. Someone, I don't know who, said, "Sir." And I took my seat. Not a guest chair, not the ones flanking the screen. The head of the table, the seat that hadn't been used in over 4 years. I sat today, folded my hands, looked around. Silence. Then finally, I said, let's begin. No speeches, no theatrical monologues. Just a beginning. The real one. They leaned in. The power shifted so subtly it didn't need confirmation. There was no welcome back. No, we're so glad you're here. They knew. The air had changed. The old guard was back. The curtain had been raised. Somewhere, maybe an hour later, Mason would wake up to his new reality. Bank accounts frozen, pending legal review. Email inboxes locked. A flurry of "we're sorry to inform you" from contacts who were no longer returning calls. My wife, ex-wife pending, would start to piece together the timeline. She would realize the wine club subscription was in my name. The lease on her car had expired last month. The shared savings account was never shared. I didn't need revenge. I just needed them to see the truth. They were guests in a world I built. They tried to take the furniture, but I owned the land. And now the builder was back. Wasn't I? Honestly, I've replayed that night 1,000 times. What would you have done in my shoes? What was a moment for you where things shifted? Let me know in the comments below.